Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CDL Podcast channel. In this episode today, we're going to be going over some of the news that just happened in the CDL MW2 news, as a lot of people are playing it on stream tomorrow, and a little bit of roster news that we have, then some stuff that was talked about on the flank that I'd kind of like to give my opinions on. And that's going to do it. Going to be a pretty short episode today. I know you guys are probably expecting to click on this one, those of you that watched the last podcast or a few podcasts, and we're expecting to see the Vanguard tier list. I'm so sorry, you guys. I feel like I just keep lying to you, and you guys might think I'm doing it on purpose, but I'm not. I've been kind of trying to keep it under wraps, but I'm just going to go ahead and say right away. The reason that the Vanguard tier list is delayed, we have a special new guest joining the podcast, my duo, one of my best friends in the world, the nastiest COD player I play with, and has been following the scene forever as well, one of my best friends in life. He's going to be joining the podcast, so that's kind of a little reveal earlier than I wanted to, but he's going to be joining. And he ordered a PC from Paradox, but Paradox, the dude who built my PC, absolute beast. I'm sure all you guys know who he is. They're getting so many damn orders right now that they ran out of some parts, so his PC just keeps getting delayed, and it sounds like maybe they're hopefully going to get that last part in today, potentially, or tomorrow, and are going to be able to ship it out somewhat soon. So I'm really, really, really hoping that his PC is in by next week, so that we can finally make that episode, so he can hop on with me and record. So that's really what the delay is. I didn't want to say it. I kind of just wanted it to be a surprise on the podcast when he hopped on. But I've said 2 or 3 weeks now that I thought it was time for the Vanguard tier list to happen. I was waiting for him to do it with me. It's kind of a good way for him to ease in. And there's going to be some nerves for his first time on the podcast. That's how I was the first however many I made. I know Kyle had the nerves the first time, and he was on and stuff. So there's going to be some nerves. I feel like just talking about something he knows, which is the players in Vanguard, he knows really well, will kind of ease him in, and just a casual conversation between friends will help ease him into the podcast. And I mentioned Kyle. Obviously, you guys know Kyle had to take a break from the podcast for just personal stuff in life. He had a very, very busy time in life, had to take a break. The door is always open for Kyle to return. I don't want you guys to think I kicked Kyle off or something, or something like that happened, but the door is always open. Kyle knows that, and he can hop on an episode anytime. He can hop on right in the middle. I love Kyle. Made the podcast 100 times more fun to record, and I extremely, extremely, extremely miss him on the podcast, because he's a great duo as well. So, I mean, if he wants to come back on the podcast at any point and he gets a little more free time in his life, his busy schedule, he's going to be right back on. We're going to have a little trio here. And I'm looking forward to that day, if that day comes. But my friend will be joining us as soon as his PC comes in. So that's what the kind of delay is. If you guys just think I'm being lazy and don't want to do it or something, no, that's not the case. We're waiting for his PC to come in. So hopefully Paradox can get those parts in soon and get his PC all built and sent out to him. That's a long enough intro for this one, though. I just want to clear up some things like that are going on. So hopefully that Vanguard tier list is coming out soon. Like I said, though, today's episode probably going to be a little shorter, because was planning to do that, and then we got the news that it was going to be delayed again. So just going to go ahead with some news. If you guys enjoy this one, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Drop a follow, drop a review if you're able on the audio platforms. You guys are crushing it on YouTube again. I don't even know how it's possible. I feel like I just thank you guys so much, and I can't stop thanking you. It's the dead time, views have been going down a little bit for the pod, and listens have been going down a little bit because it's the off season. That's what happens in the CDL off season. Things kind of slow down. There's not as much for me to talk about, and there's not as much that you guys are interested in. I get that. I appreciate any support we get, but I get that at this time of year, the CDL isn't as interesting to a lot of people unless you're an absolute diehard fan. But you guys came out, and we had 2,500 views on YouTube on the last podcast. That's insane numbers, something I never thought that I would hit. And we are, at the time I hit recording this, at 698 subs. We're 2 subs short of 700. So if you guys could drop a sub on YouTube and help us hit that 700 mark. Just a little bit ago, I was asking you guys to help at the 300 and 400 mark. Can't believe we're already talking about potentially hitting 700. So thank you guys so much for the support. I really appreciate it. But the first piece of news we want to get into, Crimsix, the GOAT, announced that he has an announcement coming on Friday. So I'm recording this on Wednesday night. A couple days from now on Friday, Crim has an announcement coming. And some rumors people are saying may suggest he might have taken Paul's spot, because apparently Paul was on Twitter talking about how he may have gotten snaked out of something, or was a little upset from what I had heard. And apparently people are saying that Crim might have taken a spot on London. I don't exactly know what that roster would look like if that was the case, but he said the journey continues or something. on Twitter. So that is something interesting because that would make me believe it's like a picture of him. Um, let me pull that up from Crim here so I can look at it. It's like a picture of him when he did that walkout. Uh, and he's like in that like Undertaker thing with a hat on and his Crim pose, the light shining on him. It says the story continues, announcement on Friday. So I would like to believe that means that's not like a retirement or like a new chapter kind of announcement. It's more of like a, hey, I got on this team. Seems like it would have to be like London or Paris because like everybody else, we pretty much know of what their roster is going to be. So I would think it has to be one of those teams, London or I guess Vegas technically now. So we'll have to see what happens with that. Kind of on a related note, ASUM was apparently released, in air quotes I'm saying here, from LAG. And it sounds like maybe he got bought out to a new team or something because like Ben Janasim, on the flank said like, oh, released question mark or something like that, or like was he? So it makes it kind of sound like maybe he was shipped off to another team or bought out by another team. And Ben would probably be a very good source for this because we know ASIM extremely close with Zuma and the guys in the flank with Zuma and Ben. They're very good friends. So if there was a player that Ben would probably know about, ASIM might be on the top of that list because I believe they are pretty close friends. So maybe ASIM was bought out. I'd love to see that. We know ASIM and how much he can impact a game with his pace of play. I'd be very excited if he was able to make it onto a team because we saw him win an event. I saw him win his first event in person last year in Minnesota. And the pressure he can apply on a map when he's on the right team can be incredible. So maybe he's on London. I actually wouldn't hate if maybe he got bought out and went to Vegas or something because if like Clay ends up there with Temp or something and then they get ASIM, it's a little trio that I like. Or Temp and ASIM is not a bad starting point for where we've seen Paris or Vegas now at. Temp and ASIM would probably be like the best starting duo they've had. So maybe he would go there. That'd be kind of cool. But hopefully he's on a roster. It technically released though was like the statement or like he's parted ways with LAG. But haven't announced at the moment I hit record of where he's going, if he's a free agent, if he's going anywhere. And then speaking of Paris or now Vegas, they officially renamed or relocated to Las Vegas. And as of now, they are apparently keeping everything branding wise, like the colors, the logo, everything. They're just switching the Paris to Vegas, and then technically like locations for where they're based out of. I'm not shocked that nothing's changing. I'm just very disappointed. I know like Blake, who's in Optic, part of TST, was saying like I would literally rebrand for you if you guys needed, like do anything to change this horrible color scheme. Yeah, like their color scheme is a little rough, like that like weird like dark bluish with like that orange and like red. I don't know. It's just a very, very odd color scheme. It doesn't seem to like be all that appealing. They basically just have the New Orleans Saints logo. If you guys know who that is, it's basically like the same logo as the Saints in the NFL if you guys are football fans. So I don't know, just overall not the best branding. Obviously we know they don't really do anything with their branding either. They don't really make apparel besides like whatever the basic league stuff, league mandated jerseys and sweatshirts and stuff are, and t-shirts. They don't really make content or anything. Like they maybe made a couple pieces of content ever in their time in the CDL. So they're moving to Vegas. I guess, in my opinion, it's cool. Like Vegas is probably a city that should have a team at some point. They just finally got an NFL team in the Raiders, and like Vegas, obviously very well-known city, very popular city for traveling and stuff. And it seems like it could be a very cool place for them to host an event. Obviously, the event in Minnesota that I went to was in a casino, and that was really cool. And obviously, Vegas casinos, it's what they're known for. They could do something kind of cool like that if they were to host an event. However, I'm really sad that we're leaving Paris because we know, like with the ESWCs that were in Paris and stuff, like fans were nuts there, and people always said like the fans were great over there. And I really feel like it was a missed opportunity to not have the Paris team, really care. They didn't care. If they could have had more activation in the local communities in France, like we've seen with specifically the Rocker and how they've built a fan base from, not really being in COD. It was like Vikings ownership. They hadn't really had a history in COD or anything. And, they buy in and they build this big fan base by like local activation and really making things popular and doing watch parties. And I feel like Paris, we saw at ESWC, they loved their COD and they had a player like Hydra who they could have made their franchise player if they were just willing to pay. If we would have seen local activation, I think Paris could have been a great market for Call of Duty. And I think it really sucks that we're not going to get to see that market kind of play out. Next thing I want to talk about, a little bit of MW2 news. Obviously, the next title of Call of Duty is going to be called Modern Warfare 2. Not like a remake or a sequel to the old MW2 from back in our childhoods, a lot of our childhoods, but it is like a sequel to MW 2019, my least favorite Call of Duty ever made, without a doubt. Apparently pros and like content creators and stuff are playing MW2 tomorrow on stream for like an event. Some news we've heard. Apparently, Doors and Tac Sprint are back, but the Ghost of Hope, who's a pretty popular leaker and has been pretty accurate with leaks in the past, says that from the maps he's seen, Doors are few and far between. So apparently they're pretty rare on the maps that he's at least seen. Hopefully that's the case for every map. Hopefully Doors are very rare and are barely on the map, because Doors just kind of suck and they're very fluky for competitive. Tac Sprint's back. I mean, I'm kind of disappointed. I do like the standard way of Call of Duty, but I mean, it kind of seems like it's a given that Tac Sprint was going to be in this game, considering it was a sequel to MW 2019, where we saw Tac Sprinting introduced. And it's also like tied in with Warzone, which Tac Sprinting is obviously a very big thing for Warzone, so you can actually move around the map a lot quicker. One of the many reasons why I'll probably mention it again later, but why I'm not a fan of Warzone, because I'm purely like a multiplayer and competitive type of person, type of player. That's what I'm interested in. Not that there's anything wrong with Warzone. Warzone obviously is extremely popular, and if you like Warzone, Warzone is your thing. Cool, more power to you. Just not really my thing. I'm more of the competitive and pubs aspect of Call of Duty. And Tac Sprinting sucks for competitive, and a lot of the things that Warzone introduced to Call of Duty suck for competitive. So for that reason, I'm like, damn, Warzone really ruined a lot of things for us in the competitive scene. And the whole Tac Sprint thing is one of them. Temp apparently said that the slide, we've heard this before, is like Ghosts, where your gun goes down. So hopefully it's a mostly useless tool to get into engagements, but more used as like, oh shoot, I got to get around this corner. Sliding will make it a little faster to like slide and like maybe avoid some shots or something. Because really where sliding breaks the game is where you can use it to get into your engagement, aka slide canceling or slide canceling into a heady like you would always do in BO4 and stuff, where you could just basically slide cancel and like see maybe out earlier than you would if you just ran around the corner or like walked into it. So slide is apparently less OP, according to what Temp and other people have said. So hopefully that's actually true, and Cellium doesn't find a way to bust it and slide cancel like on day one when he's playing the game or something. Apparently dolphin dive and like mounting are also in the game though, so you're gonna be able to dolphin dive and slide. I'm interested to see how that mechanic works. Maybe it's gonna be like a tap to dolphin dive and a hold to slide or something. I wonder how that'll work. I don't think it'll be two separate buttons, because that would kind of be a lot, but I would think maybe it's like a tap to dolphin dive and a hold to slide, or maybe vice versa, something like that. There was a map overview released, and some people were saying it looks like Raid. Some aspects were kind of similar, but it looks pretty solid from what I see. Like, it looks like pretty clearly 3-lane. Looks maybe a little chaotic on certain points. Apparently, and now I want you guys to not laugh when I say this and take it with a very big grain of salt. Take it very lightly, but apparently some people that have played it said it kind of plays like Raid, some pros. We're going to take that very, 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 very lightly, because in all likelihood, the game probably has squad spawns, so it will not play anything like Raid. And also at the same time, Raid is like one of, if not the best competitive map ever to exist. So to say a map plays like Raid is like insanely high praise. The map could be a fantastic top tier map, and it might not even be nearly as good as Raid, because Raid's probably in the S tier of competitive maps. Not probably, Raid is in the S tier of competitive maps that have ever existed in Call of Duty. So to say it potentially maybe plays like Raid is a wild comparison, because it could even be a very, very good map, and it might not be that close to Raid. So that's a little wild to maybe have people saying stuff like that already, especially if there's like squad spawns and stuff in the game, because that'll greatly affect how good the map plays. But from the brief overview, obviously we can't tell anything. We can't tell anything about the aesthetic and the colors and how the map plays, what the line of sights look like. But from the picture of the mini map, it looks like a pretty decent, like clear 3-lane map, which is something we didn't see much of in MW. So hopefully that is the case. There was something in the settings that talked about like your walk speed, but apparently that's more for like PC or Warzone or that new like Tarkov mode. And I'm not going to pretend to know much about Tarkov. You guys know I've pretty much been a console person. Just recently got the PC to help with the podcast, and I've been playing a little bit of Valorant lately. But in terms of like PC game knowledge, not my thing. Don't know a lot about it. There's certain like PC games like Overwatch that I've played on console a lot. And now I play a little bit of Valorant and really am getting into the competitive thing. I've been watching champs and stuff over these past couple weeks, and that's like the one PC game I'm really into. But I'm not going to pretend like I know a lot about Tarkov, but I know there's a mode that's apparently similar to Tarkov coming for this game, and people said that that whole walking setting could be for that and for Warzone and mostly for PC. Apparently it's got like a 0 to 100 slider for your walk speed, or like your default walk speed. And if it's below 25, you are completely silent, and anything above that, I think it gets progressively louder for how much your speed is, which to me, that's the part that I'm interested in, if this is a thing that's like a setting for multiplayer as well and not just like Warzone and for competitive and stuff. has me thinking that footsteps could be very loud again, like they were in MW when you're moving at full speed on that like walking spectrum and not sprinting. So it's not confirmed either that we have ninja or like a dead silence in the game. So I'm very scared of this. Like, let's say you are walking at that like 100 speed, which is like in competitive, and most times you're going to be going full speed, especially in respawn. If you're going to be able to hear such loud footsteps again, that really worries me, because that's just, I don't know. To me, I'd rather have the footsteps be completely silent. You've got to use your map awareness and your teammates' callouts and communication and everything to find out where people are, not because you hear somebody stomping with iron boots on over like the loudest thing you've ever heard and crashing through so you hear them. Not a big fan of that, but hopefully they aren't too crazy loud, because it's not confirmed we have ninja or anything in the game. Then the last thing on MW, Gunsmith is confirmed to be in the game. They're calling it like Gunsmith 2.0 or whatever. That's just a massive L to me. I mentioned it earlier, but it's kind of like one of those give and takes with Warzone. Obviously helped grow the Call of Duty scene a lot because Warzone is so popular. But one of the negatives to me for Warzone, being a competitive fan and a multiplayer fan, oh, the Gunsmith is here. A lot of people have been talking about it. I saw Octane and some others talking about it. They just miss like, and they could spawn in, pick 3 attachments, and go run around with their 3 perks, or they miss when they could do a pick 10 and they could like, load their gun up but be penalized and not get any perks for it or something, or no tax or no nades, no lethals. It seems like this Gunsmith era is here to stay. I think it's like a massive L. I can see the appeal for like a Warzone, because you can do so many different combinations. Like you can have a gun that specializes for when you're trying to clear a building, or you can have a gun that specializes for when you're kind of out in the open and you need to shoot long range. So I get stuff like that for Warzone and how all these different attachments could keep it interesting. But for competitive, like, we're going to build one gun. And to me, it was always better when it was like, hey, on my gun, I'm going to put a foregrip, I'm going to put a quick draw, and I'm going to put a stock and a sight or something. And then I'll throw on a perk 1 and a perk 2. But since I have 4 attachments, I can't actually use a perk 3, but I'll use a stun. And then this teammate will use a nade, like the pick 10. Or if it was just like a straight up, like, hey, you can put 2 attachments on your gun, like you put a grip and a stock on your gun. And then you're going to get the 3 perks, you're going to get your nade, you're going to get your tack, and then you're going to go on from there. It's going to be simple. You can experiment with the couple, like the 12 attachments that come for the gun. You can experiment, you're going to get 3 of them. You experiment, find the best gun. Maybe some people like quick draw over the grip or something, or maybe some people prefer to have no stock but throw on a sight, or like there's the little slight changes, but like you didn't have 16 different stocks to choose from and 16 different grips to figure out what they all did, and like you might go the whole year and you're not even using the best possible version of the gun because there's like 18 billion different combinations to try. Overall, the Gunsmith for the competitive aspect is just not the best thing. I can see even how pubs it could be good, because you get so many different combinations to not make the game be stale. Like I see the theory behind it from a casual standpoint, but this is a podcast where we're talking about the CDL and competitive. So from a competitive standpoint, Gunsmith kind of sucks because of the variability it brings into the game, but I definitely see the point of it. Like if you guys are more of a casual player and you really enjoy Warzone and pubs, I completely see the point of it. Like it adds variety, which when you want people to keep replaying your game for a year, and in this case 2 years, you've got to add some random stuff into the game that is going to make it seem more replayable. So I get the business aspect of it, but from a competitive aspect, I just still don't like it. Couple things from the flank I want to talk about before we wrap it up and hopefully keep it under like a half an hour this week again. The flank tweeted like a thing out, basically is a picture of the COD Champs trophy from, I think that's BO4 to be honest. And it says, who's the most underrated Call of Duty player of all time? And I was just kind of going to go through some of the replies. The top reply is Doug saying, me, and it's not even close. Jacob Hale, obviously you guys know him, a pretty well-renowned esports reporter, said it's got to be Crowder for him off the top of his head. Never the flashiest player, nor someone winning championships all the time, but his resume across his playing and coaching career is incredibly tippable. Obviously Crowder has the ring as a player in AW, a couple championships sprinkled along the way in other titles, and then he won the Cold War ring with Atlanta Faze as the coach, and obviously took second this year with them as the coach, second in MW with them as the coach, second for Thieves as the coach. So like that's what 3 second places at champs he's gotten as a coach and a win. And then he also won a champs himself, and he finished in World War II with Faze. He finished like 3rd or 4th too. So he's had a lot of top finishes as a player, including a win, then a lot of top finishes as a coach, including a win. So I think that one's a big shout out. Although it says player, so I think you have to kind of take out his coaching career. And I don't think Crowder would be maybe the most underrated player of all time if we're just talking strictly player and not coach, but obviously an incredible career. Man, I see a lot of people saying Classic. You guys know how I feel about Classic. I absolutely love the guy. That is a really good call out for me. I feel like, what was that stretch where like Classic won an event and like every title up until like Cold War, like straight, because in MW he won with Toronto, that one home series, the Toronto Ultra home series. Like he won an event from like BO3 into IW into World War II into BO4 and then into MW. It was like a stretch of like 5 or whatever games where he had won an event in every one. He has many event wins, a lot of relatively high finishes at champs. He's definitely up there. TJ said Hecz. I don't know. Hecz is a tough one because I do think sometimes he gets underrated by people who forget how good he was and that hate him because he was so against Optic. But at the same time, man, I don't know. It's tough because Hecz is also always like pretty widely regarded as a top 10 player, so it's hard to maybe say he's underrated. Formal's on here. I don't agree with that one. He's basically listed as top 5 on pretty much everybody's list. Apathy's listed on here. I agree with the Apathy one. He's a 2-time world champ, won a lot of chips in his career, and I feel like kind of gets glossed over when it comes to the top players of all time because maybe a guy like Scump in the subcategory like outshines him. A lot of people are giving a lot of credit to Simp and Abezy now, which rightfully so. They're definitely up there, but Apathy is one of the few 2-time world champions there is, 2 times or more. Somebody said Karma. I don't think Karma's underrated. He's basically he's like in the GOAT discussion. Everybody knows he's top 5. Bobby Poff said Fellow. I don't hate Fellow. He's been a very good player. One thing Fellow was always known for was his average placing at champs was always very, very high. Like if he made it to champs, he was finishing top 6 or better. So that's a good call out. Somebody said Bance. I feel like Bance maybe could be underrated, but he's also gotten a lot of praise from people, including me, as of late. So maybe he's not exactly underrated, but I can definitely see the argument for that. J-Cap's a very good one. I feel like the end of J-Cap's career, he was kind of tailing out individual skill-wise, so a lot of people remember him just and like think he's trash, but that is absolutely not true. J-Cap's a 2-time world champion for a reason. I mean, the guy made it to grand finals at champs in what was it? He was in there in Black Ops 2 on Envy, and then every jetpack final he was in, including back-to-back titles in AW and BO3, and then he came from winner's bracket in IW and was in finals and ended up losing. And then in BO4, he was up 2-1 with a huge lead on hardpoint against E United to make a deep run there. So like J-Cap's definitely pretty underrated. TP's another good one, man. I got to stop going through this. I'm going to see a million names. TP's definitely underrated. He has like a lot of championships. Like he's top 10 in championships, I believe, still, and has a ring. And people just never talk about him because he's kind of overshadowed by Karma, Hecz, and Crim on his roster, who everybody is obviously putting in their top 10. But yeah, that's an interesting discussion. So you guys, if you're still listening at this point, comment down below your thoughts. Who's the most underrated COD pro, or maybe list a few if you have a couple that you want to shout out. Some ones I didn't list. Maybe there are probably plenty more that I could have gone through the tweet and thought of. Then the last thing I want to talk about from the flank, Hecz listed his preseason rankings for teams just off the top of his head in like 50 seconds and was like, yeah, this is pretty good. Somebody write it down. So I want to go over that. He listed it as Faze, starting from 1, obviously, down to the bottom. He said Faze, LA Thieves, Toronto, Optic, Seattle, Rocker, LAG, NYSL, Boston, London Royal Ravens, Florida, and then the Vegas Legion. To be honest, I don't mind his list. I think I probably would put Faze 1 as well, because it's Faze. I mean, they still have Simp, Abezy, Cell. It's pretty hard to have them any lower than 1 or maybe 2. I can see maybe why you put LAT up there because they are the defending champs, but that Faze roster is incredible. Like always, they're usually always going to be number 1 because we just have no questions about them. LAT too, I don't mind that. They're the defending champs for a reason. They're one of the few teams that's going to be coming back with the entire full roster, so that might give them an advantage early with the chemistry aspect, and they're going to have a lot of confidence coming off a world championship. Toronto 3, I don't hate. There are a little bit more question marks on this team. Like I think Scrappy's incredible, but I don't know. Maybe he's going to struggle a little bit right away in his first time in the Pro League. I doubt it, but there are a little bit more question marks with this team. Standy, we've seen him be a very good player, but he wasn't as good last year, so I'd like to see this team gel. I can see the reason for optimism with Toronto at 3, but I'm not fully sold on it. Optic at 4, I don't think this is a bad place. I really think you could have Optic really anywhere from 2 to 4. I can see how you can maybe put them ahead of like a Thieves or a Faze if you're really going to buy stock in Illy being healthy, and maybe we're going to see stage 1 Optic again. I can see that. But I can also see how you think that LAT defending champs dominated Optic at champs. We got to keep them ahead of them. Definitely fair. Faze, obviously, you can see a reason why they'd be ahead of Optic because they're Faze. They could be ahead of anyone. In Toronto, you're maybe playing for the upside and the more unknown factor of Scrappy to be a superstar to go over Optic. Don't hate it. Surge 5, don't hate that either. Rocker 6, I might move Rocker up. I know I really like that roster, but I think it's also justified to have these 5 ahead of them at 6, so I don't hate it. LAG 7, this is where I get a little bit more questions for me. It's hard to rank London, Florida, Vegas because we don't like technically know their rosters, although I do believe that's probably the bottom 3. London 10, Florida 11, Vegas 12. That's probably how it's going to be. Although if the Vegas roster does end up with like Clay, Temp, ASIM, kind of putting an asterisk on that one, I could see them that roster moving way up, or Vegas moving up to power rankings maybe to that 9-10 range if they end up getting a good roster like that. This is really the hardest part of the list for me, though. I do think his top 6 is probably my top 6 teams. I might like flip orders a little bit, but I do think that Faze, LAT, Toronto, Optic, Seattle, Rocker is probably my top 6 teams. I like that NYSL roster a little bit more than I like the LAG roster, so I think I would maybe move NYSL up to 7 instead of LAG where he has them. And then I also kind of like the Boston roster, I feel like, a little bit more than LAG, but I don't know. Boston, LAG are a toss-up to me. I'd maybe switch NYSL, but overall, I think he came up with a pretty damn good list. Like, obviously, it's probably not going to be 100% correct. Going to be pretty impossible to do that, but I could definitely see a world where this list shakes out pretty close and people only move maybe a couple spots from where he has them. But there'll probably be one team that we have ranked in the bottom 4 that'll end up being a top 5 team or something. Always seems to be how it works. Always the teams on paper never go exactly how you think they'll go based on what they look like. But that's going to do it for this one. Obviously, if you guys enjoyed on YouTube, be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Comment down below your thoughts on Hecz Power Rankings, what you would rank them. Comment down below your most underrated pro, your thoughts on MW2. I want to hear all your thoughts. You guys know I always like to interact with you guys down in the comments and have some conversations, because that's what the podcast is for, have some conversations with you guys. If you guys could drop a sub, I greatly appreciate it. Like I said, when I hit record on this, we were at 698 subs. We're so close to 700. If you could sub, I greatly appreciate it. We're on that road to 100, or not 100, geez. We're on that road to 1,000 subs to hopefully get partnered on YouTube and continue our journey. I really appreciate the support. Like I said, I can't believe you guys got 2,500 views and listens on an off-season random podcast. You guys are just the best. Incredible. I really appreciate the support. If you guys are on the audio platforms, be sure to drop a review on there and drop a like if you're able. I really appreciate all the support. I can't say it enough. I know I'm always saying it, and it might not come off as sincere, but man, it's really sincere. You guys are giving me an opportunity to continue to be more excited in the off-season. And showing so much love when I know it's maybe not the most exciting time for the CDL. But like I said, hopefully that tier list is coming next week. I know I say that every week now, but I finally told you guys the reasoning. My buddy's PC is hopefully going to get the final parts he needs from Paradox and going to get it sent out. So that's coming soon, ideally, and be on the lookout for that. I really appreciate the support. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.